Ghosts have somehow moved into my day.
Hello everyone, Pamela Zero here. Welcome to Duck Duck Goose, a podcast about the Visitor series. This episode includes chapters 27 and 28 of the book Osei. Thanks for coming along on Osei's journey. Chapter 27, Osei, the Estate, Punjar. Osei headed out the front doors of the estate and down towards the maze, nearly running to get away from Eleanor and David. He wove his way through the maze more by instinct than sight. Both of Punjar's moons were bright, and he reached his bunker in a matter of minutes. He climbed down and switched on the light. The main room was mostly empty. He had spent the last few days clearing out all his childhood things and putting them up in the attic back at the house. All that was left was a desk in the corner and a lone chair oddly placed in the center of the room. On the far wall, stretching from floor to ceiling, was a hollow still, pulled and enlarged from the visitors' released footage. It showed a moment during the fight between Feather and the Cura. The image plastered on the wall displayed Feather up on top of the pedestal, vivid against the sky. One arm was flexed, arrow embedded. Feather was grinning fiercely under her mask and pointing at the arrow piercing her. Osei sat down in the chair and stared at the image. It had been over a week. Was she all right? Was she healing? Had he made any kind of impression on her? Settling into the chair, Osei slowed his breathing. He relaxed as he looked at her image. He should be able to tell who was under the skin suit. Her face was right there, but he had never seen any visitor with that grin or a head shaped that way. The chin looked vaguely familiar, but he couldn't place it. The hands were bulky compared to the wrists. The waist was narrow at the top, but seemed to jut out at an odd angle closer to the hips. Osei berated himself. He was a Punj male. He should be able to figure this out in a heartbeat. He traced back through every bit of sensory info he had collected while close to Feather in the cave. Parts of her looked like Fran. Other parts were too bulky to match. Some parts of her head might be Maggie, but the cheekbones were wrong. The hand-to-wrist ratio was more like the pilot that flew them to the rescue planet, but the strange angle at Feather's hips was sharper. He pulled out his commune and dialed Sai. Sai answered, his voice a drawl. "Don't tell me you're in the bunker, looking at your crush." "Why can't I figure out who she is?" "Because you are blinded by your emotions and aren't thinking clearly. It's Fran. No disguise can hide that skeletal face from a Punj male. You would see that if you weren't blinded by your obsession." "Don't be snippy," said Osei. "I'm not." "Well, okay, I am, but you have to admit it's damn inconvenient," said Sai. "First, my life partner is obsessed with finding the first, but he doesn't know which visitor actually is the first. Then, a cycle later, my life partner is obsessed with a specific visitor, which should be a step in the right direction, but he refuses to acknowledge which visitor it is. I feel as if I'm distinctly lacking in mystery." "Sigh, this has nothing to do with you or our partnership." "By the faces, Osei, I know you. As soon as you acknowledge it's Fran, you'll want to woo her. Create a triad, right? When I figure out who she is, perhaps. And yet, you're right," said Osei. "When I learn who she is, I want to figure out how to get her into our lives." "You should have seen her, the way she moved. She was fearless." "I have seen her," replied Sai. "I've seen the footage, just like everyone else in the galaxy. Footage that was purposely released by the visitors to generate a response designed to shift their position in the galaxy. If I were trying to change my people's galactic image, I'd probably create a Feather too. The visitors are quite brilliant, actually. Now they're not just a tool for the service, they're independently useful. And they have a cool hero." "You're saying she's a visitor advertisement," said Osei. "Yes, and I'm going to tell you now. I love you greatly, and I'm happy to talk about whatever new thing strikes your fancy, but I categorically refuse to get an arrow shot into my arm. I might be persuaded to dance around on top of a pillar, but it would need to be pretty short." Osei laughed. He glanced at the image on the wall again. She's just so elusive, mysterious, capable, fearless, effective. All the things that you and I are not. You are capable, Sai, much more than I am. True. There was a moment of silence. Listen, Ose, do me a favor. Bring that image up out of the bunker and put it in our room there at the estate. Own your obsession. His voice grew softer. The sooner you figure this all out, the sooner you can be disillusioned by Feather's humanity. Fran probably has a sour mood in the morning and a tendency to burp after hearty meals. Put the image in our room. Trying to hide your noble quest just wastes energy. Ose smiled. All right, I will. He smiled at the image of Feather. Listen, watch the footage again, will you? See if there's anything I missed. Sai snorted. It's Fran. But sure, I'll watch it again. However, if I fall in love with her, I'm blaming you. Sai hung up. Ose gently took down the image and rolled it up, smiling. As he turned to leave the bunker, he saw her. Feather, standing at the foot of the ladder. Her stance was relaxed, but there was blood dripping from her arm. He looked down at the floor, hopeful, but the rough wood was clean. I wish you were real, said Ose, his gaze traveling up to her face again. He searched for any hint of Fran in the angles of her face, but found none. I wish you were right here, right now, and I could talk with you, learn about you. He took a step towards her. She backed up a step, moving through the ladder and half disappearing into the wall of the bunker. He held his hands up, trying to pacify her. Please don't go. Who are you? You need to tell me who you are. His voice grew ragged as sobs rose up through him. Please. Feather took another step back and disappeared. Fran, Dome 1, Thrid. Happy 7th, Near, said Fran as she handed him his present. She was late to the party, but then again the party itself had been delayed, pushed back a few weeks by the Cura's kidnapping of Ori. The small room was a bit warm, filled with gristle and human bodies, everyone milling about, but few focused on the event at hand. The party was held deep inside the Gristle home tunnels, burrowed into the cliffs that ran along the river. Fran had never been inside one before. They were bigger than she had thought, but the ceilings still seemed oppressively low. Near took the present in his huge paws, then bowed stiffly. Thank you, Auntie Fran. I'm glad you're here. Fran noted his rigid stance. It's all right, Near. We'll keep Duck safe. The young Gristle nodded, then turned silently and put the present on the table behind him. Fran understood his concern. There were a dozen unmarked ships around Thrid now. The bulk of the visitors living on the planet had already been evacuated, slipping through the Gristle tunnels dug for exploring Thrid, then sneaking off the planet via spacecraft small enough to escape notice. The only visitors left were the 6 in Duck's immediate family. A soft smile shone for a moment on Fran's face. They'd done the same thing back in the prison lab at Burston. Sent everyone to safety, waited until the last minute, made sure everyone else was safe, and then, only then, left themselves. Her smile twisted. Things had worked out last time, but it had taken a while. Fran understood how important the 7th cycle celebration was to the Gristle, but wished it could have happened later, a month or so from now, after they'd heard back from the Galactic Council about the bounty hunters, after they'd figured out where to go that was safe. She smoothed her expression and then scanned the room looking for Duck, finally spotting her at a small table overflowing with food. Fran made her way over. Duckaroony, happy 7th! I got you a present, but it's too big to wrap. Duck stood and hugged Fran hard. Fran knelt and peered into her face. How goes your world? Tears filled the little girl's eyes. We need to leave. Everyone is pretending and having a party, but we need to leave. Fran nodded. I know, hun, but we're not sure where we can go. The other visitors are not as recognizable as you and your mama, so we found small planets with out-of-the-way towns for them to stay. But we need somewhere more private, somewhere without press, where no one knows us. No, Auntie Fran, we should go where there's a lot of people so we can hide in plain sight. Maybe the temple. Duck's voice rose, hopeful. We can go there and hide like I did before. We can wear offered robes and be quiet mouses. At this point, that actually sounds like a decent option, said David from behind Fran. She stood and looked at him, incredulous. After all the work we did to get out of the temple? David shrugged and then rubbed his brow. I just don't see many choices. Maggie joined them. What about the Punjar security forces? I would think they owed us a favor. Don't they have a place they can stash us? Do you want to explain to Eleanor that we're heading to Punjar to hide? Asked David. She would go if it was the only place where Duck was safe, said Maggie, glancing at Eleanor across the room. We could convince her if we stick together. Duck's face lit up. Oh, I know where we can go. She crouched down and then motioned to the others to do the same. Where? Whispered Fran. We have to call him and make sure it's okay, but he has invited us over, and it's quiet and big, and no one is around, and there's a big maze made out of bushes, crowed Duck, her voice rising with excitement. Where? Said David and Maggie in unison. Duck beamed. Uncle Ose's house. His estate, murmured David. Private, large enough for the 6 of us to camp out, and completely unexpected. No one would think to look for us there. The 3 adults turned and looked at Eleanor. Let's talk to her together, said Maggie. Duck stood up briskly and ran over to her mother. Kester, the temple, Hutlam. A somber line of lasts walked slowly through the cavern, filing past the glowing blue source with nods of reverence. They were the members of the circle, their jewel-toned robes glinting as they moved. Rank and file last were arranged in rows, ringing the source. Their eyes were fixed on the circle members as they made their way across the massive cave. The circle headed into the power room, where the globes found in all the services technology were recharged. Last in line, Kester kept his pace steady, ignoring his roiling stomach. He liked to think of the circle events like this as a performance, opportunities to wow the multitude of lasts with the stable formality and tradition of their leadership. This ceremony had a practical bent to it. The recharging of power orbs was to begin again. Not too many, just a few dozen a day to make sure nothing had fallen into disrepair while the machines had slumbered. In 2 weeks, the output would be increased to 100 a day, then 1,000. The circle estimated that production would be at full capacity within half a cycle. Kester skirted one of the black pools of substance, the smell rising bitter and acrid. He wrinkled his nose, a fresh stab of pain lancing his gut. He'd almost fallen into one of the black pools when he wasn't offered, and he still instinctively steered clear. He had been a good offered. Back then he was just a malnourished boy freshly dumped on the temple steps, studying anything and everything in a frantic effort to be allowed to stay. He'd watched as debates raged among the last about whether the substance was part of the source, there since its origin, or if the service had created the substance. Kester didn't know. He knew that the substance was key to recharging the power orbs, information limited to circle members only, and that was all that mattered. His eyes flicked ahead to the power room, its carved door open and inviting. Machinery filled the room beyond. This was the only view that most lasts had. The technicians who worked the machinery and members of the circle were the only ones allowed through the door. Kester slowed as the line of lasts swayed past the threshold. He entered, bracing against the heat. He'd only been in this room a few times before, and he looked around carefully, noting the intricate equipment. Lights blinked on spotlessly clean machinery. Dials moved of their own accord. Small hisses and distant clanks stuttered. Technicians in immaculate blue robes hovered over the machines, eyes darting. Now and then one of them wiped a tiny speck of dust off an otherwise pristine surface. Along the left wall was a counter, white translucent orbs lined up in single file, motionless. Normally they'd be advancing, the countertop carrying them gently to a circular hole in the wall, just big enough to let them through. On the right wall was a twin counter, empty. Recharged orbs came back up on that side. A few empty containers stood waiting, ready to be loaded. Technicians stood, their posture rigid, along the counters. There was nothing for them to do. There had been nothing for them to do for cycles. Kester felt a flash of pity, then shoved it down. They would have work soon enough. Circle moved behind a bank of equipment and broke file, clustering around a cupboard against the back wall, hidden from sight by the machines. Head last Poyne glanced at Kester, who nodded. As last in line, it was Kester's job to make sure no one from the main cavern could see them. One by one, the last took out small bags from the cupboard and opened them. Inside were breathing masks, gloves, and shoe covers. Silently, they put on their protective gear. They tugged at the sleeves of their robes, making sure their arms were completely covered, and tucked their hands into their pockets. A machine clanked loudly, and Kester tensed. Head last Poyne put his palm on a narrow door to the right of the cupboard. It swung inward, and a blast of stinging air, reeking of substance, rolled over the lasts. The circle went through the door single file, Kester doing his best not to touch the oozing black sides of the doorway as he passed through. Stone steps angled down, curving out of sight. Kester closed the door behind him and started his descent, giving the last in front of him plenty of space. There were stories of lasts tripping, tumbling down the stairs, taking others with them. As the line of lasts made their way down, the walls on the left and right grew shorter and shorter, until the circle was trudging down a staircase perched midair, slowly spiraling down into a massive cavern. This was the true power room. Black walls slithered, slimy with substance, fountains of it burbling up and out of the massive boulders that dotted the floor. Stalactites loomed from the ceiling, dripping steady streams of acrid fluid. A small stream of clear water ran down one side of the cavern, the only clean thing in the massive space. One entire wall was a torrent of frothing substance, falling to form a tumbling river, racing rapidly across the cavern and disappearing into a void in the floor. The river of substance roared, splashing against the rocks, and the stone of the staircase trembled. Kester felt sweat drip down his chest as he focused on getting down safely. The circle made it to the bottom. They clustered on a landing at the base of the steps, a meter above the thick layer of substance that covered the ground of the cavern. The river roared so loudly no one could speak. Kester's heart skipped a beat, disoriented by the thunderous vibration. He looked carefully around the expanse. There, tucked among the boulders and rivulets of substance, were technicians. Some sat rocking, others stretched over black, slippery boulders, clinging to the rocks as if about to fall. Kester could see their faces twisted in horror, mouthing words, silently sobbing. Becoming a technician was an honor. It took courage. To have done everything needed to become one of the few hundred beings able to recharge the orbs, then to see the source lose its power, had shattered them. Head last Poyne took a deep breath through his nose, then hopped down onto the substance-covered ground. The hem of his robe dragged, soaking up substance as he headed towards the bank of the river, avoiding the technicians. The lasts followed carefully, walking where he had walked. Head last Poyne stopped at a small lump clinging to the riverbank. He bent over and touched it gently. It moved, uncurling, unfolding, and then stood. Its offered robe was slick with substance, and Kester reminded himself that it was a person, a normal being, changed by their role. The offer leaned over and retched, body spasming as substance poured from their mouth. The voice was strangled, bubbling, and wet. Head last Poyne, have you come to end our torment? Chapter 28. Ose, the estate, Punjar. Ose stood at the top of the stairs leading to the main house. His breath was purposely even. On his left was his mother, Lady Wennell. Arranged behind them were the estate staff, except for the newly hired security personnel. The security team was already patrolling the borders of the estate. Ose was leaving nothing to chance when it came to the safety of the visitors. The grand stairs flowed down below them like ripples in a pool. At the foot of the stairs was a large gravel circle that stretched until the start of the hedge maze. He could see an illusory duck slowly doing cartwheels across the gravel. She was the only imaginary visitor in sight, though he had spotted a deceptively solid-looking Eleanor and David at breakfast. The visitors were on their way. They had left Thrid that morning and had quietly made their way to Punjar. Osei ran logistics in his head as he stood in the midday sun. 3 of the guest houses were set up, additional staff had been hired, food had been ordered, and the cook was up to speed on visitor-style cuisine. Lady Wennell had outdone herself preparing different activities and adventures for the guests, and Osei had vetted the security team himself. Osei heard the slight whine of an approaching flyer. He focused on his breath and posture. He caught a glimpse of the flyer coming in low and fast. It stopped directly above this gravel circle and lowered down to within a meter of the ground. After a few minutes, it rose back up into the sky and took off, leaving behind a small pile of luggage on the gravel. He could feel the staff stirring behind him. Lady Wennell tilted her head but remained silent. Osei felt a flush of appreciation for his mother's cool exterior. She had the rare ability of allowing events to unfold at their own pace. The visitors appeared suddenly, all 6 of them, in front of the pile of luggage. They wore blacked-out skin suits, and Osei heard a few sharp intakes of breath from the staff. As one, the adults bowed, as Duck sketched a rough curtsy. Behind the real visitors, the transparent Duck had switched to somersaults. "Welcome!" Lady Wennell's voice rang through the air. The visitors let their skin suits slip down, revealing their faces, and turned to pick up their luggage. Lady Wennell slowly descended the steps as the visitors started up. They met on the second landing. Osei stood frozen at the top of the stairs, unable to make himself move. One of the people below might be Feather, or the first. He closed his eyes. He was not sure he could do this. He breathed in and then out again. A roaring sound rose in his ears. He opened his eyes. The real visitors were slowly climbing the staircase, and as Osei watched, their ghost-like versions popped into sight, slightly transparent, overlapping each other. The illusions multiplied, talking, chatting amongst themselves, and the roaring in his ears resolved into the murmur of countless conversations. His eyes skittered across the expanse of transparent bodies, searching for Feather. The ghost-like beings became more active, leaping through the real people and snatching at their luggage with incorporeal hands. He watched in horror as an imaginary Fran slung illusionary Duck onto her shoulders and leaned in so Duck could poke at the chimes on his mother's headdress. His mother, unaware, was climbing the steps slowly, talking with the real David. More gossamer visitors kept coalescing out of nowhere, spilling out over the wide steps, falling into the brightly flowering bushes, tumbling down to the gravel circle. Their voices buffeted him, blowing through his body. A shimmering Duck ran up the stairs to him, laughing. Her mouth moved, but Osei couldn't hear her over the noise of the others. He swallowed hard. She tugged at his hand, trying to get him to bend down and talk with her. His body went cold. He looked down and saw her hand, ghostly and transparent, holding his. He could feel her skin against his, icy, prickling. Panic bloomed within him. He pulled his hand away and turned, putting his face to the sun and closing his eyes. Tears rolled down the sides of his face. The ghosts could touch him now. The precarious balance that he had been keeping up until now tilted, and he felt himself slide down. Bitterness rose up in him, a black wave of anger and regret. He silently cursed the service and its prophecy. He railed voicelessly against himself, his weakness, his obsession with the first. I could have helped the visitors back when they first came through, but I didn't. I hunted the visitors, stalked them, captured them, controlled them. Self-disgust bubbled through him, acrid as it seared him through and through. And now I want to befriend them? I dare to love them? I couldn't even keep myself in the service. I can't even be a proper partner to Sai. I can't even keep this estate maintained. Osei stood, stone still in the sun, racked with self-loathing. buffeted by the waves of noise coming from the imaginary visitors. He felt a small hand slip into his. He knew it wasn't real. He knew his mind was imagining Duck offering him comfort. Part of Ose half smiled at the poignancy of having the real Duck here and now on the stairs below him, while he stood motionless, holding hands with an illusory Duck. "Uncle Ose, I have a present for you." Duck's small voice cut through the babble in his mind. He opened his eyes and looked down to see a brown-skinned hand, quite solid, in his own. Duck, the real Duck, was standing next to him, holding his hand. The cacophony twisting through him suddenly stilled. Silence rang sweetly in his ears. He kneeled to look at her face. She handed him a small package tucked in an old leaf. Ose glanced down the steps and saw only the real visitors, slowly making their way up. He looked back at Duck and took the gift. "I wrapped it in a leaf from the tree outside my window. Open it up!" Duck let go of Ose's hand and twirled around. She stopped suddenly as she noticed the staff lined up, waiting, and curtsied awkwardly towards them. Ose took a moment to quickly wipe his eyes on his sleeve, struggling to control his breathing. The staff bowed back to Duck. "Who are these people?" Duck whispered to Ose. "They work here at the estate. Would you like to meet them?" Ose's voice trembled. A quick glance down the stairs still showed only the real visitors and his mother. He moved slowly, careful not to disturb his fragile new peace. Duck nodded, suddenly shy. Ose guided her over to the houndsmaster. "This is Houndsmaster Boosley. He cares for the hounds here at the estate." "Hounds? Like dogs?" Duck's eyes grew big. "Similar, but these hounds are more intelligent than dogs," said the houndsmaster. "They are the Kessel. Keep in mind that they are as smart as you or me. Should you wish to see them, please be aware that they are quite territorial. You may watch them, but only from a distance." Duck nodded. "Sometimes teeth don't care what they bite." Ose smiled as best he could at the little girl, then brought her down the line of staff, introducing her, keeping his voice soft and movements deliberate. He felt like he was floating, suddenly made weightless by the absence of the ghostly visitors. When they got to the head cook, Duck paused and moved slightly behind Ose. The head cook was a Zuresk, a hard-shelled being with most of its body encased in a bright blue carapace that towered over even Ose. A small triangular head perched on top of its shell. It extended one of its appendages out towards Duck, with a small, ornately iced cookie held neatly in its pincher. Duck smiled shyly and took the cookie. "Hello, my name is Duck." Her voice grew a bit more confident as the Zuresk tilted its tiny head in her direction. "I can cook too. I can wash vegetables and stir things and gather ingredients." Her voice dropped in volume as she said in a hopeful whisper, "Do you need any help cooking?" The cook leaned forward and focused one eye on the little girl. "Well, Duck, you may call me Strix. Do you know how to stay away from knives?" Duck nodded. "Do you know how to keep clear of the cooker?" Duck wobbled her head from side to side. "What if I'm stirring? Sometimes I stir stuff on the cooker." "Really now? You're that skilled?" Strix twitched its mandibles slightly. Duck nodded vigorously. "Yes, I can even stir until something bubbles and then let you know it's bubbling." She looked triumphant. Strix nodded. "Very well then. If your guardians are amenable, you may assist me in the kitchen, as long as your time there does not interrupt your studies." Duck curtsied to Strix, and they continued down the line of staff. Ose spared a glance down the steps and saw the rest of the visitors climbing the last flight of stairs. David and Paolo were arm in arm with his mother. He wasn't sure if she had feigned a need for assistance up the steps, or if his mother's frailty was real. Ose finished the staffed introductions, just as the group coming up the stairs arrived at the top. "Uncle Ose, open your present!" Duck pointed to the package still in his hand. Ose unwrapped the crumbling leaf and found a small wooden box. He lifted the lid and saw tiny purple seeds glimmering inside. "They're Worcester seeds. From the Worcester bushes I brought to Thrid from the garden at the temple. Duck grinned at him. Remember back a long time ago, before Thrid, when I was at the temple and you and Uncle Si followed me up to the garden on the roof? I hid under the Worcester bushes, and that's why you couldn't find me. Osei remembered. Cycles ago, when he had been a part of the service, before he met Duck or any of the visitors that would consume his life, when he and Si were floating through their lives, calmly loving each other, when life had power and purpose. Duck twirled around. But you did find me later on, and now we're friends, and no matter where we go, we will find each other and be friends. So these are seeds for the Worcester bushes, and you can plant them or give them to people. Osei smiled down at Duck, and something deep inside him untwisted. He inhaled, his breath sweeping through him, hollow and clean. Lady Wennell gestured towards the front door of the house, and the staff dispersed as the visitors moved inside. Osei waited until he was alone, then took a moment to gather himself together. The stairs below him were empty, the gravel circle clear of any transparent visitors. They were gone. Maybe not forever, but for now, they were blissfully gone. Mobe, Skylab Space Station, Thrid. Mobe packed his few belongings into a small pack, his old offered robe, a holo case full of images of Master Osei. He used to have a piece of candy that Duck had given him, but it had dwindled away over time, slowly melting in the humid air of his tiny quarters. Down on Thrid, the tourist cage was empty. The visitors had left Thrid, slipping away to escape the bounty hunters. The tourists complained about the lack of sightings and then left when days stretched into a week without a single glimpse of a visitor. Word reached the hunters. They left in search of their prey, and the space around Thrid was empty once again. Skylab circling the planet all by itself, like a moth to a doused flame. Moby gritted his teeth. Once again, he was alone. No matter. He'd agreed to watch over the visitors, and he couldn't do that when they weren't here. He needed to find them. Not all of them, just the 4. Duck, Fran, Maggie, and Eleanor. The first 4 to come through from the past. One of them was the first. The thought echoed within him for a moment. He grimaced. He could tolerate Maggie and Eleanor, but Fran was difficult. She made his tentacles twitch, always hovering over Duck, and the way Master Osei looked at Fran made Moby queasy, like he was scared of her, or in awe. It was hard to tell. Taking a deep breath, Moby cleared his mind. He didn't really need to locate the 4. When he really thought about it, he just needed to find Duck. She was the first. He knew it to the tips of his tentacles. Moby shrugged his pack onto his back, then left his tiny room. He needed to catch the next autoflit and then transfer several times to get to his destination, Master Osei's estate. He would know where Duck was. Moby's stride lengthened, and he swung into the ladder to the outer deck with focused skill. One step at a time. Catch the flit, get to Master Osei, find Duck, and keep her safe. Thank you for listening to Osei, Book 2 of the Visitor Series. Osei was written by Pamela Zero. This podcast was recorded and edited by Pamela Zero. The song Ghosts was written, sung, and produced by Pamela Zero. Background music is called Insight, and it's by Megan Wofford. Osei is available in paperback on Amazon. Please be sure to like and subscribe, and visit thevisitorseries.com for more info. Thanks, everyone. I'll talk to you soon.